there's no freedom without structure. Like I used to play a game with my students when we were talking about Jean Piaget, who was very interested in the development of morality through games. So I say to them, so we're talking about freedom. It's like, okay, freedom. It's freedom from constraint is freedom. All right, fine. Let's play a game. Do you want to play this game?
Sure.
Okay. You move first.
What do you mean?
That's the game. You can do anything you want. You move first. You think, that's not much of a game. It's like, no, it's the perfect game. You're absolutely free to do anything you want.
Okay.
Well, everybody does what you did. You just sit there. The right amount of rules for freedom is not zero. Say, now I put a chessboard in front of you, and you think, oh my God, all the limitations. I can't throw a basketball on the chessboard, which you certainly can't, not if you're playing chess. But now you know, you move first, I move the pawn two spaces forward.
I see what you're saying.
So
having some structure and some rules to follow gives people more of a path to
everything.
To go out. Yeah.
Yeah. And and I think this is modeled by music. And this is really worth knowing. This like almost took the top of my head off when I realized it. And it took me about 4 months of thinking to figure this out. Because when I was in graduate school at McGill, I became really interested in the reality of evil, and I was very interested in the viability of nihilistic beliefs. You know, why bother if everything's going to disappear in 100 years? Who cares? Life, it's meaningless. In the final analysis, life is meaningless.
Right.
Okay, well, you can make a credible case for that. Now, it's a upsetting case. Because once you accept that, first of all, you're anxious and hurt by it. So that's not so good. And second, it kind of makes you aimless. And that's part of nihilism. It's like, you're anxious and upset, but you're also aimless. Because why bother? And fair enough, but you can make a credible case for it. But then I thought, well, when that gets out of hand, maybe you're nihilistic because you're mortal and life ends in death. So you're sort of nihilistic because of suffering. And so then you become nihilistic as a logical response to that. And then what happens? And then what you see is that nihilistic people definitely make suffering worse. Definitely. They make it worse for themselves, for sure. But then they get bitter because their lives are so unbearable, and then they start to take it out on other people. So if you are nihilistic, that's not neutral. It gets bad real fast. So then I thought, well, are there any antidotes to meaninglessness? And rational antidotes are hard to come by because you can just say, well, who cares if in 1,000 years we're all going to be dead? Why get out of bed in the morning? You can't really mount a rational case why that's not reasonable. Now, I'm not saying it is reasonable, but I thought about music. Music is a very strange art form. I had a great journalist friend of mine. He said to me the other day, he said, all art aspires to the condition of music, which I thought was great. But music, you think about the revitalizing effect music continues to have in our culture, especially among young people, and that's really, really been the case since the beginning of the 60s. It's like we got more nihilistic and less religious and all of that as our culture became more secular and more rational, more materialistic. And at the same time, the power of music as a cultural phenomenon just grew and grew and grew and grew. Say, music gives you the intimation of meaning, right, directly. So let's think about what music is. First of all, it's a pattern. So non-pattern music is noise. It's a pattern. But then it isn't one pattern. It's multiple patterns layered on top of one another in a harmonious manner and in a manner that indicates, in some sense, communication between all the patterned layers because they have to go together. And so, what's the world? Well, the world's made of objects. It's like, no, it's not. It's made of patterns. So music is just like the world because the world's made of patterns. And then music has layered patterns that are all moving together in a harmonious manner. And so what do you do when you hear that, especially if it's got a beat? Well, then you move your body. And you want to, right? The music calls to you to move your body. So now you're moving your body in sync with the patterned layers of the world. That's meaning. And then there's more to it, so that's so cool. is music is an analog of the structure of existence itself. And it calls to you to take part in that. And then, so maybe you dance by yourself, or maybe even better, you dance with someone else. And so then you both bring your bodies into this patterned relationship with this multi-layer harmony together in a spontaneous way, indicating that you can both play and are therefore potentially trustworthy future mates. That's unbelievably cool. And birds dance. It's not just human beings, you know. So this is a deep thing. And then music does something else too. It puts you on the border between chaos and order, because a boring song does exactly what you expect it to do and gets dull very quickly. And an unlistenable song is so random you can't follow it. And so what you want is predictability with a leaven of unpredictability. And then that puts you right on the edge. That's the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky discovered that.
Like a Hendrix song.
Yeah.
It's a luxury to pursue what makes you happy, but it's a moral obligation to pursue what you find meaningful. And look, there are an infinite number of ways to interpret the world. So then the question becomes, how do we know that one way is better than another? That's a good question. The postmodernists, they'd say you can't know. But that's not a good answer. Why? Because if nothing can be ordered, if no interpretation is valid, then you drown in chaos. And that's not just philosophical, it's biological. When things get so chaotic that you can't make sense of anything, your body flips into emergency mode, your heart rate spikes, your immune system shuts down, you start to burn out, you age fast because you're surrounded by things you can't control. That's what we call an existential crisis. It's deeply anxiety-provoking, deeply depressing, it erodes your spirit. And more than that, neurophysiologically, we're built in such a way that we don't experience any positive emotion unless we have an aim. We need to see ourselves progressing towards something. It's not the attainment that makes us happy. It's the movement toward the aim. I mean, you know this, think about it. You finally graduate from university. What happens? You're king of the mountain for one day. And then you're a serf at Starbucks for 5 years, right? So that tells you the goal itself isn't enough. The moment you attain it, the game ends. So what do you need? You need to aim again. You need to be in the process, not just chasing pleasure or the end result. Human beings are weird creatures. We're animated far more by moving towards something than we are by actually getting there. So you need a goal, and that means you need an interpretation. And it also means that the nobler the goal, the more worthwhile your aim, the better your life. Now, look, you've heard this since you were a kid, right? Be a good person, don't lie. And at some point you probably thought, why should I? What's the point? That's a valid question. Why not lie if you can get what you want? Why not twist reality a bit to serve your short-term needs? Even 3-year-olds ask this question. And frankly, smart kids learn to lie earlier. So again, why not do it? Well, here's the problem. You destabilize yourself. You pull the floor out from underneath your own feet, and soon everything becomes chaotic. And now you're in crisis. Without a noble aim, what are you left with? Shallow pleasures. And they don't sustain you. And that's a big problem because life, it's brutal, it's filled with suffering, it's complex, it ends, and everyone you love dies. So how do you bear that? You can't unless you have something to carry you, something that's heavier than all that pain, and that's your noble aim. When people lose that, they become desperate. And when you become desperate, things go from bad to worse very fast. So this isn't optional, this isn't trivial. A noble aim is as vital as bread. It's psychological bread, something the soul can't live without. Now, what is that noble aim? You see it in myth, in the story of Marduk, for example. It's pay attention, it's speak properly, it's confront chaos, it's create order, it's make the world better, something like that. And that's enough to give you the strength to stand up straight, to bear the weight of being, and maybe even justify your existence despite the suffering. So, where do you begin? Start by imagining that you were someone you actually cared about. That's rule 2 in my book. Treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. So ask yourself seriously, if you could have the life you actually needed and wanted, what would that look like? What kind of friends would you have? How would you relate to your family? How would you treat your children? How would you educate yourself? Start thinking that through. And when you can see it, aim at it. And the remarkable thing is, if you commit to a vision like that and work toward it deliberately, you'll begin to move toward it, step by step. And that's how you transform chaos into order.